Hello, everybody. My name is Emir Turam, and on behalf of the Sports Management Department of Bilgi University, I sincerely welcome all of the participants of today's The Business of Basketball panel. The Bilgi University Sports Management Department puts a lot of importance on aligning academic work and extended research with ongoing competitive sectoral dynamics in the field of sports. And the Business of Basketball panel is another step in this direction. We are honored by the participation of esteemed panelists from the international sports community and the academic world with an emphasis on basketball. We will be taking a look at the business side of basketball, specifically on contemporary management approaches for creating value within a competitive business environment. The aim of this panel is to cover 3 levels of operational basketball business approaches. The club business approach, due to the clubs being the fundamental entities the industry actually rises upon. National leagues, because clubs do not exist by themselves, but operate as participants of organized competitive business platforms we refer to as leagues. And last, but certainly not least, international leagues, which are very important in topping up everything within continental and global perspectives of modern sports business dynamics. Now, our participants. We are honored with the distinguished presence of Dr. Ceyda Mumcu, Associate Professor of Sports Management at the Pompea College of Business, University of New Haven, Connecticut, who will reflect on an academic perspective in extension of her work on data-driven decision-making in sport management, among a bunch of other issues. Then we have Mr. Oytun Özer, Executive Board Member of the Galatasaray Sports Club, Istanbul, Turkey, who will reflect on the club management perspectives of one of the greatest powerhouses of the Turkish sports scene, and also international sports, of course, Galatasaray, and their multifaceted efforts of revenue generation in modern basketball. We have Mr. Stefan Holz, the CEO of the Easy Credit Basketball Bundesliga, Germany, who will reflect on modern National League business management perspectives with emphasis on the BBL within the internationally acclaimed and highly respected German precision. And Mr. Patrick Comninos, the CEO of the Basketball Champions League, FIBA, to reflect on the modern management concepts behind the organization of the Champions League and share with us his conceptual business understanding of creating value when running a modern continental basketball league, which embraces a large number of national champions from all around Europe. Okay, so we will start with the academic perspective. Dr. Mumcu, we are very happy to have you with us as the academic side of our Business of Basketball panel. You have 3 tough CEOs from the industry side that you need to match up against, but I'm certainly confident that you will hold your ground. Being originally from Turkey, you have a unique position where you can relate to both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, Europe and America, in your academic research. And further to that, you used to be a top-level basketball player yourself in the Turkish Women's League, so you also have a lot of insight into the sport of basketball itself. Now, the world is digitalizing more and more each passing day. Sports organizations are gaining reach to increasingly extensive amounts of data, which is becoming cheaper and easier to accumulate, evaluate, and efficiently use to their benefit. In your recent work, you've been exploring related developments of data-driven decision-making in sport management, which is probably an area directly related to creating business value, which many CEOs are also concentrating on. What would you have to share with us in this direction?
All right. Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm up for the challenge to match with the CEOs. It's a pleasure to be here. I will share my screen to carry on the presentation. Here we are. Okay. So as you mentioned, the sport industry has access to a lot more data than before. And with that expansion, the industry has become more data-driven, especially in the last decade. And it is due to the digitization of our lives, technological advancements, accessibility of these systems and structures. As a result, I can tell you today, every single NBA franchise has a data ecosystem and a CRM infrastructure. With that said, they have access to big data. And most of the time we refer to big data and we insinuate it refers to the large volumes of data, but also varieties of data. At the same time, the speed or the velocity of accessibility and processing is extremely important. Real-time applications are very much needed today. And quality of the data, as we say, veracity and the value driven from it. So I want you to keep these in mind, and I want to carry you forward to the data sources. We're talking about there are a lot of data available to sport organizations today, but where do they come from? Briefly looking at it, they definitely accumulate information from the customers in terms of they have demographics, they do have definitely contact information. On top of that, they do know the behavioral patterns of these customers and even the attitudinal information. As a result, I can tell you with confidence that NBA knows who their fans are and they have extensive knowledge about them. On top of that, they do have information about transactions. And these are any type of data associated with any transaction, whether it is ticket sales, info from POS systems, at concession stands, merchandise, name it. So there are a lot of extensive information related to the transactions. In addition to those, there are digital information. It comes from the web, it comes from email marketing, social media sites. Based on these, they are able to examine their websites. They are able to take a look at the design functionality, appeal of the content, and test these in an extensive way. They similarly can take a look at the success of their email marketing. So they are able to examine if emails are opened, which ones have click-through rates, how does the content relate to the audience, and so on and so forth. Similarly, social media brings extensive information about not only the followers, but also from the marketing and promotional aspects. On top of those, they are able to generate information and data from venue perspective, so they can access the GPS information. If the venue is equipped with RFID chips, they do have information to that, and also the Wi-Fi. By using the location-based information, they are able to improve customer service in terms of whether minimizing the waiting lines or finding and staffing people properly in different locations and so on and so forth. Think about going to an event and you don't have to wait in line for bathroom or concession stands. These are big deals and great convenience in the United States. In addition to those, they also have external data. They are able to purchase syndicated data or third-party data, and these are greatly used in customer acquisition and also sponsorship sales. With that said, it's clear, and there are other ways to accumulate other type of data as well, but looking at the vast variety of data and volumes of data available, they use different type of data for different type of analyses. And with that, I want to briefly tell you that we have 4 types of analyses. The first 2 actually are concerned with the past. The next 2 are concerned with the future. It starts with creating a baseline through descriptive analytics, and they look to answer what happened. In the next step, they look at diagnostics, and this part is indicative of why things happen. So it gives you answers as to what is happening, but also why it is happening. In the next step, it's moving towards the prediction, what will happen in the future. And finally, with the prescriptive analytics, they are able to identify what decision should be made, what action should we take. As a result, at the end of the day, the purpose of this whole data-driven business is generating insights and enabling businesses to have actions based on those. Let's take a look at how actually NBA uses business analytics. I designed this in groups for an easier communication. As a profit-oriented organizations, and NBA franchises have a great deal of attention on revenue generation. They do predict their demand for each game, and coupled with the price elasticity and additional factors, they are able to determine appropriate prices for each game. And not only selling the maximum number of tickets per optimal price, they are also interested in overselling their arenas. So they use technology, utilizing GPS and cell phone systems to identify tickets that are sold yet will not be used. So based on that ticket system, they are able to resell those tickets with a flexible seat assignments to generate additional revenue. So these are creating extra additional added revenues to their revenue system. Finally, on this category, they do have pricing models for ancillary products, and collectively, all this is done to maximize the revenues. On the customer side, they have plenty of different approaches utilized. Bulk of the attention is spent on customer retention. A side note for everyone to notice is that it is cheaper to retain a current customer than to acquire a new customer. With that mindset and the knowledge, they have a focus on propensity models, which are used to predict the likelihood of ticket renewals. So they are able to look at their season ticket holders, mini plan buyers, and recognize if they are likely to remain and purchase again, or if they will churn, and they are able to examine the issues through the churn rates and such, but they are also able to act proactively and pursue individuals to increase their retention rates. In addition to that, they look into customers' lifetime value estimations. In other words, not every customer or fan equally valuable for the franchise. In this marketplace, there are customers who require quite a bit of servicing, which is costly, yet they don't have a positive return. So what they try to do is that identify the highly valuable customer and definitely service them to retain them. On the flip side, they want to identify the ones who are not as valuable and try to find ways to increase the value generated through them. And if not possible, they try to reduce the cost of servicing those individuals. On top of these customer retention aspects and value of these individuals, they tend to segment and identify groups of homogeneous customers within their fan base. And this allows them to approach them in an efficient manner so that they can frame their marketing tactics accordingly, which results in, again, elevated revenue streams. Finally, they do have efforts in acquiring fans, obviously, and these often rely on the segmentation studies, the personas developed out of those, and they use lookalike models to identify potential customers who look and behave similarly to their current customers. So these are helping keeping valuable customer, expanding the fan base, and finding ways to generate additional value and revenue through them. On the operations side, one of the biggest problems in the United States is the parking. Parking is a headache, and that's the first thing your customer or attendee experience as they come to your event. So, and on top of that, there's the ingress and egress, entry and exit to the venue. So these pain points actually can be resolved by using technology, and they do use GPS data and heat maps to solve some of these problems and increase customer service and satisfaction. They utilize staffing properly based on these. They also manage and operate concessions and merchandise stores accordingly. Finally, there are budget aspects, and they try to optimize the use of budget for the most optimal outcome. So there are prediction and optimizations from budget perspective as well. Finally, I do want to mention that there are some perspectives brought into the B2B aspect, and that is specifically referring to partnership at the moment. And NBA franchises are able to conduct analyses to identify the utility of a variety of assets they offer. And based on that utility, determined by the sponsor, they can identify the value of the assets and price those accordingly. So we can generate an appropriate package per sponsor based on their needs and values that they assign to assets. Finally, ROI, return on investment of the sponsorship packages, is a big deal. So there is some efforts in measuring these and properly and periodically reporting those. One last comment I would like to make in regards to your first question, and it is about globalization. As you know, NBA is one of the most global brands in the world, and technology plays a big role in expanding the business beyond the borders. They do utilize, obviously, strategic methods and analyses, but those are coupled with analytics, especially social media and media metrics. And in this sense, they use social listening and conduct segmentation based on that and generate brand communities. And once this is coupled with the streaming or traditional media metrics, they are able to identify locations, foreign countries with comparative advantages would lead into the globalization strategy. So I would like to stop here and turn it back to Emir. And thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mumcu. How complicated does it get? I mean, thank you for that overall framework, mainly from the American side. And the point at the end that everything is becoming global is actually what we are trying to get at. I mean, not only the NBA, but the other three participants who are on the European side, they also have a lot of global emphasis. We will be exploring that right now. Now we are going to Mr. Oytun, Özer, and Galatasaray. Mr. Özer, you have a lot of experience going back all the way to Eurobasket 2001, when you did a great job with the event management team of the Turkish Basketball Federation, in spite of your very young age at the time. And you've been part of many sports events ever since. Now, considering your expertise in your professional business life, where you focus on productivity issues of ailing companies and finding remedies for them, we are certainly looking forward to reflections of your expertise in top-level club basketball management. I know that you are also in charge in Galatasaray in the executive board of other important club initiatives that go beyond basketball. You were part of the CURE team that prepared an extensive business case presentation for the UEFA, for example, under difficult circumstances enforced by financial restraints. But our main interest today will be confined to basketball. So how do you approach contemporary basketball club management? What are your goals, your advantages, and if any, your difficulties? And how do you intend to tackle these difficulties, and how do you plan to create value? In short, what can you tell us about the business plan of Galatasaray basketball?
First of all, I would like to thank you for offering the stage, and it's a privilege to share the stage with all the respected participants. And for everyone, like Emir has been my mentor for the last 20 years, one of my mentors, and I highly respect him. I'm very grateful for, you know, all the contribution that he made to me so far. And I'm an investment banker by profession, but I have a fairly strong basketball background. That's, I think, something that I can very clearly say. So I'm first of all a fan, and I played basketball. I volunteered for basketball. I coached basketball, and I directed basketball, and this has been my privilege all the way. And in Galatasaray, my primary focus until 1 month ago has been purely football. And as Emir kindly mentioned, I defended the club in UEFA. That's how I started it. And I won a case against UEFA in CAS, and that's one of the unique cases actually, where one club wins against UEFA in CAS. And since then, you know, I am like one of the main persons managing football until 1 month ago when the president of Galatasaray, Mr. Cengiz, asked me together with two of my very good friends, asked us to take over the management of basketball, and which we gratefully accepted. And since then, we have been working all the time. And it's my childhood dream, to be honest with you. And you know, I did my MBA in Carnegie Mellon, and one of my tracks was sports management. So therefore, I share like kind of a similar background with you, with most of you guys. So, and now I have the privilege to combine my sports marketing track with my knowledge in investment banking. So why do I mean by that? When we were asked to take over this unit, this branch, men's and women's basketball and wheelchair basketball, we said that, okay, first thing that we should do is to build an equity story. By I mean we, it's 3 persons. It's me, it's Doruk, who is an ex-partner of Boston Consulting Group, who is a management consultant, and who is Ilber, who is a very high caliber lawyer. So we have a, I think, very good team with the extremely strong chemistry, and we have been working together for more than 2.5 years in the club in different functions. So therefore, you know, we have a very strong team, and we said, okay, let's build a story first, equity story. So what do you want to achieve at the end of this? So, and the goal that we identified for ourselves was, okay, we would like to, you know, make sure that, you know, we build a financially, commercially, and operational sustainable regional powerhouse in basketball. So it's a very big word to achieve, but we said, okay, why don't we do that? Why don't we try that? So if we don't try, we cannot achieve it. So advantages that we have, first of all, is our club, without, you know, without any doubt. So we have a very strong club with roughly 30 million fans in total. And we have an extremely strong legacy in basketball. And when we did our initial due diligence, we found out that there are lots of long-hanging fruits that we can easily implement in our commercial strategy. We have an established structure, and we have a very strong support of our board, which is very important in clubs which are formed like associations like us. And we have a very strong team, like, you know, we 3 of us, you know, we get along pretty well. We know how to work with each other, which was very important. But when it comes to difficulties, as Emir kindly mentioned, I can start with COVID-19. You know, I can talk like days and weeks on COVID-19, but I think the only thing where I can summarize is uncertainty, which is still valid, and which we cannot tackle as of today. And I don't know how we will tackle it going forward. We are doing our best. Second one of the difficulties was the need for an implementation, which can only be achieved in midterm, whereas we have upcoming elections in less than 10 months. So therefore, you know, we have a short time period where we know that we will probably be still managing the unit, but whereas, you know, we need longer time for this. And the third one is the financial depth of the club. As you know that, you know, Turkish sports clubs, us and our competitors, we have a certain level of debt that we need to manage. And the fourth one, which is really important, is the irrational operating environment. And there are lots of competitors which are loss generating, so which means that they're operationally inefficient or they're operationally irrational. So we can define it either way. So what do we have to do, given that these are the things that we cannot change? We said that, okay, we stick to the plan. So what is the plan? We said that, okay, we are selling and we are buying rights. So we are buying rights of our players. We assign players, we assign coaches. So we are buying rights so that, you know, they are with us for a certain time period. What do we sell? We sell sponsorships, which are basically rights. We sell indirectly through the federation the broadcasting rights, again rights, right to watch the, you know, the competitions, including Galatasaray. We sell tickets, gate receipts, which are again rights. And the only thing which is a little more similar to the retail part is merchandising. And thanks to Mr. Comninos and his team's efforts, now we have prize money, which we did not have for a very long time, or which were very negligible. Now we can talk about a structure which is similar to football, where, you know, if we qualify to certain levels of our competition of Basketball Champions League, we will be able to earn more money. So for the first time, there is positive correlation between the sportive success and the financial gains, which is strongly tied with it. So which is very important. So COVID-19 what is its major damage to us? It gives us uncertainty in rights that we can offer. So we don't know whether we will be able to play our games with fans or without fans. So it gives us some uncertainty with respect to sponsorship packages and its activation potential. And still what we need to achieve is a solid structure with self-funding basketball operations. So these are very important priorities for us. So what we, if you ask me what I'm working on today, like in July, in August, and as well as in June, when I took over the branch together with two of my very good friends, we worked on settling outstanding liabilities. Because of the COVID-19, unfortunately, we had some problems with some of our agents and players. So I have achieved a significant progress there. I think I'll be done with that by the end of this month. I'm trying to form the new season's team. And I've already completed the women's side, and I'm more than halfway in men's side, which is really important. And now I'm working on, together with my colleagues, on redesigning the organization chart, which is really very, very important, which should be lean and efficient. We are discussing with sponsors, given the COVID-19 difficulties still, to see what can we offer. And something which may be interesting for you guys is, we are discussing a coin offering where we involve basketball. So where we will make sure that, the fans will be actively involved and they will have a say in certain decisions of the basketball unit, which is, I guess, very important. And one last thing, which is, I think, very important, is we are trying to strengthen our relationships with the stakeholders. What do I mean by stakeholders? Federation, FIBA, players, fans, agents. We are, trying to make sure that, we do a good plan there. So what is the business plan? So it should always go up. We should increase our commercial revenue, definitely. Sponsorships, gate receipts, we should definitely increase them, given, despite the fact that we are also, faced with the challenge related to COVID-19. We should increase the competitiveness of the team. What we are trying to achieve, the mix of young talents with the experienced players. And I think we did a good job in women. I think we have a very good chemistry with a lot of players from our academy, together with experienced players who can help them in grow and who can maintain also the competitiveness of the team. Third, corporate governance. In the future, we really hope that, the unit, no matter who the board member is, we are an association, no matter who the board member is, will stick to a plan. And the plan will be executed by professionals. That's something that we are trying to achieve. Fourth, youth academy focus. We definitely need to focus more on youth academy. And we need to give them a clear target of what to do. And in our case, I guess we need to produce players, professional players, to our club, to our teams, to our senior teams, I think once in 1 year, once in 2 years. So that's something that we need to do. And one last thing, which we are currently working on, is the new gym investment. I think, as Galatasaray, we need to have our own gym, which would be a strong pillar for the long-term sustainability of Galatasaray basketball. We are currently working on the tender documentation. We will go to our General Assembly. We will do our best. We will give our best effort to ensure that we activate that project so that we have a gym, which will also help us in increasing our commercial revenue base. And finally, what is the target? We will compete for the title in every competition that we are in. Our motto is unbeatable, undefeatable Armada. And, and we have a strong appetite. That's a message to Mr. Comninos, is to win the Basketball Champions League. I'll make sure that, we will compete for this. So we will have a strong team. We will have a strong initiative of the management. So despite all the challenges that we are facing, which is a reality and I think which we can accept, we will go for it. So I hope that, by the end of this 2021 season, we will be one of the main contenders for this. So, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Oytun, for the great summary of your overall perspective. You certainly have a lot of work to do, and the situation is hardened, as you mentioned, by the situation the world is in. corona pandemic itself, but also the uncertainties coming out of it. You know, some plans are very difficult to make for this. Like you said, you don't know if you will have fans or not in your games. And the league is scheduled to start in a little over 2 months from now. Now we will be moving to Germany. The Easy Credit Basketball Bundesliga, the German Basketball League, and Mr. Stefan Holz. Mr. Holz, the professional work of your top management team have drawn considerable respect in wider basketball circles, because even though clearly on the rise, basketball is not one of the leading sports in Germany with regard to public popularity. But the German basketball is still doing a great job in that situation. We have been following how the BBL management created a tempting environment for one of the strongest German sports brands, who wasn't really in basketball before, Bayern München, to take the initiative of strongly investing in basketball a few years ago. An overall investment, not only limited to their team on the court, but also at everything else surrounding the team, including the great atmosphere in the Audi arena. An investment that made Bayern one of the powerhouses of not only German basketball, but also of European basketball. Then, facing the current corona pandemic, one of the major differences between European basketball and European football was that most national basketball leagues entirely shut down their operations, stating the importance of human life and health above anything else. Whereas, in contrast, most of the European football leagues found ways to continue their operations, even if in modified capacities, because financial pressures of much larger investor budgets were maybe too strong to stand against. Now, in this context, the BBL under your leadership became one of the few European basketball leagues which followed the general business example of football in coming back to organize a closing competition after the pandemic was leveling out a little bit. It seemed, from the outside, it seemed like you were conveying the message, yes, human life certainly is important above anything else, but one of the responsibilities of sports management is also to protect its stakeholders' investments while taking the necessary health precautions. That was a great example you set. My specific question to you is actually in the same direction as Mr. Özer. How do you approach contemporary National Basketball League management? How do you create value? What are your goals, your advantages, and if any, your difficulties? How do you approach these difficulties? In short, what can you tell us about the business plan and operational preferences of the Easy Credit Basketball Bundesliga of Germany?
Okay, thank you, Emir, for this very kind explanation and introduction, and especially for inviting me personally to this very high-profile podium, digital podium tonight. So good evening, everybody out there from Cologne, Germany. Yes, I try to do this verbally. Where are we standing? What are our challenges, and what is our business plan from the league side? To give you an overview, what the German league, the BBL, is. At the end of the day, we are today a, let's say, mid-tier domestic league. So we are not the top league, obviously, in the world, not even in Europe, but we are fast-growing and ambitious, sometimes aggressive league with a clear plan behind it. And I will try to give you an overview of how do we approach this. As Emir has said correctly, the situation in Germany is a little bit different in basketball. I have some very interesting numbers for all of you. very new, quite new market research all over Europe, saying that in Germany just 24% of the people are interested in basketball, in the game of basketball, not in the league, but in basketball at all, 24%. In typical basketball countries all over Europe, like in your wonderful country, Turkey, it's 62%, 62. So the standing of basketball in the media, in the society, is completely different in Turkey, in Greece, of course, in Lithuania, in Serbia, in Spain. So in Germany, we are fast growing, but we are behind, of course. So we are, let's say, the challenger. And you know, Germany we are a football country. Football is every day is the dominating sports over here. We will never change this in my life, but we can close the gap a little bit. So the situation is, when I give you this number, I think the target is quite obvious and very clear: to bring more people to the wonderful sport of basketball and then to our league. That is more or less the challenge. Coming to this, some 7 years ago, the league, it was before I was in charge. I'm now in charge since 5 years, 2015. In 2013, the BBL defined, it's called a Vision 2020, to be the best league, the best domestic league in Germany by 2020. So there were a lot of laughs behind it. How can the small German league define such a target? But I think it's something you have to learn in life. You have to set ambitious targets. They have to be realistic, of course, but they have to be ambitious. And where are we now? Now we are in 2020. Now, of course, we have a pandemic situation, but obviously we are not the best domestic league now. I think still the ACB in Spain, our friends there are doing a fantastic job. And they are still ahead of, I think, all of us. Of course, the Turkish league is very fast, very growing, especially now with the efforts of such a big powerhouse like Galatasaray, which will, I think, bring a lot of value to the domestic league also and to the BCL. But the idea was not only to be actually the best league, but to bring all the clubs together behind one vision and to form a union of everybody, of all stakeholders, with a clear target. And over the last 6 or 7 years, the BBL developed very fast. Now we have a total revenue in the league of 130 million euros. Only in the clubs, plus something like 15 million in the league. So we are about 140, 150 million business here. And some years ago, it was just 100 or 90. And we have a growth rate of up to 10% year by year. So it's fast growing business here. And the idea is to bring this story, to write the story further. And we have a clear plan, we have clear objectives, we have a clear strategy and clear measures behind it. And the key, as I mentioned before, the key will be to bring more people into basketball. I think a lot of, let's say, sports in the second row or the mid-tier section, I think a lot of sports, they have a mistake. Yeah? They are doing a lot for the hardcore fans and for the nerds. And we did this also up to 2 or 3 years ago. But we definitely changed this business mindset. I think we have to be open. We have to embrace people which are not hardcore basketball fans now. That means we do not have to bomb them with stats and all this stuff and names. We have to build up content, a content structure for, let's say, sports interested people which are not that familiar with basketball now. That is our idea, to attract more target groups, to bring in more people into the sports of basketball and into the then BBL, of course. And we are doing this with a clear, let's say, budget, with a clear plan. We have a clear message, measures behind it. For example, it's end of the day, it's media investment. I think we're the only sports property in Germany we have investing into digital media spend. So we have a seven-digit media spend budget here for digital marketing. We're doing a lot of content marketing, not only let's say game content, but we are working together with YouTuber, we're working together with influencers from the digital world, and try to use their followers and their reach in doing cooperation with them. And we invested heavily last year in our brand identity. I will come back to this in some minutes. We have a new claim, which we haven't disclosed now because, then there was a pandemic. Everything in March was ready to go to push the button. And then, of course, we had other challenges just to survive. Now the question is to bring all the clubs in a safe harbor and to bring them into next season. And so I told you about the 130 million business in the clubs, in my 18 clubs out there. We now ask them to do the planning for next season, and it turns out that they in total plan now with 100 euro, which is the BBL back 5 or 6 years ago. So of course it's we were thrown back some years, and we stopped our marketing plan because to lift the curtain a little bit, our claim and the identity, the brand identity, it goes in the direction of the experience at a game. Basketball is completely different from handball, ice hockey, and especially football. It's a experience for all senses. It's loud. It's like going in a club or going to a rock concert, to a BBL game, and and especially, of course, I went once. Sorry. To my friend from Galatasaray, but I went to Fenerbahce against Real Madrid some years ago, and it was it was so loud and it was so great. And that's the power of basketball, and our claim and our marketing proposition goes in the direction of wow. It's a wow moment going to a game and to experience a game. And now when you have a play behind closed doors, or you have an empty arena, of course that's not wow. Of course, you can translate it into on the screen, on TV, but at the end of the day, a lot of things that our product needs is missing. We are missing now. So we are waiting for the moment to bring spectators back. That going to a BBL game is wow again, and then we will come out with our new brand identity with some wow moments. And then we will push the button, and we will start our, let's say, our plan to roll out our brand. So there's some budget behind it, but we have powerful contracts. So that's the idea behind it, to at the end of the day, to bring more people, to attract more people to this wonderful sport, to experience basketball. All our data are showing, if you're going to basketball at the first time in your life, experience it, it's absolutely fantastic to everybody. And the challenge will be to bring the people back and back again, and to create this stickiness to the sport and to our league. And of course, coming back to Dr. Mumcu, of course, digital marketing is key, and it helps to create stickiness. But that's the thing we need. It's not enough to have 24% of interest in Germany, and that's the thing we have to grow. And I think our product is attractive, and we will continue to grow the league once the pandemic is, of course, behind us. So that's in very short words. That's our plan. You hear it from my background. I have some marketing, media, and consulting background. I never played basketball in my life. Sorry, but that's what we're doing since 5 years now, and we will continue to do so. Yeah. So thank you very much for giving me the floor to bring you to the BBL and what we are doing here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holz, for the overview of your approach to basketball in Germany. And I know how hard you and your team are working, and I'm sure you will be increasing that graph, as you already mentioned. I mean, with regard to popularity and also with regard to returns of basketball business in Germany. Now, having listened to the club perspective and also the National League perspective, which brings together the clubs in a domestic national platform, we will go on to Mr. Patrick Comninos and the International League management. The International League management brings a new angle into what we have been talking until now. Different countries, different cultures, different priorities, different understandings, and from time to time, different legal systems. And a successful International League management needs to be aware of all of those and also to be able to create outcomes and solutions for certain difficulties that are mostly inevitable. Mr. Comninos, you are a very experienced sports professional. You were also part of the team that created the UEFA Football Champions League back in the early 2000s. FIBA is certainly lucky to have you at the helm of the Basketball Champions League, which was created not very long ago, but has already achieved distinguished success. How do you bring together the wide range of champions and finalists from their respective countries, each of which are used to having the spotlight on themselves and to be in the forefront, and you need to find a way to combine them and create mutual value for everybody out of this togetherness. This is actually probably one of the most important difficulties of an international basketball league. How do you do this in the Basketball Champions League? I was lucky to have the opportunity to visit your office at the FIBA House of Basketball, just outside of Geneva. And I've had the privilege of meeting your capable management team. How does your office operate? And what is your business approach at the international business level towards creating value?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emir. Good afternoon to Nadim from the House of Basketball here in the outskirts of Geneva, where we are operating, albeit the confines of COVID-19. It's a great opportunity to be on this panel, and I think actually the order of the discussions was very well managed in the sense that we started with, let's say, the academic aspect that lays the foundation, and then we went from club to league and then to the international competition. And in this case, participants or members of the Basketball Champions League, because as Oytun said already, Galatasaray is a new member of our competition. The German league, the BBL, is a shareholder of the Basketball Champions League, and Stefan Holz is a member of our board. So all of that, I think, links very naturally into the discussion about the Basketball Champions League as an international competition that goes at that, let's say, third layer from club to league to international competition. And I think the key aspect to discuss here is how all of us collectively work at creating value, which is at the end of the day the theme of today's panel, the creation of value. So the most important part now for me is to be able to share my screen, which is the most technologically challenging part. I think I have managed it. You can all see it. Good. So the question, of course, here, for those that might not know it so well, probably Stefan Holz could give this presentation himself, being part of the board since the inception of the competition. But at the end of the day, we have to first identify what is the BCL, what is an international competition. And here I think we fall in a very unique premise that the BCL is an entirely new competition. It's not one that existed, was revamped. It's not one that was upgraded from a previous one. It's a competition that 5 years ago, FIBA and the national leagues decided to launch jointly in order to meet special needs and special demands that I will elaborate on. So it is quite a unique premise, and I think it's therefore very important to try to label what is the Basketball Champions League. And for us, it is a pan-European club competition based on sporting principles and inclusiveness. And as I will try to explain, these are not just fancy terms, these are core values for us when it comes to the inclusiveness, when it comes to the sporting results that we value so much. So I think Emir alluded to this already on a few occasions, the fact that we are truly pan-European, and the challenges that often are upon us when we talk about a pan-European competition. Obviously, COVID-19 is an enormous challenge because in addition to the problems that a domestic league might be facing, we have the additional challenge of international transportation, for instance, being able to fly from one country to the other. And it is something that is certainly impacting all international sports, not just the Basketball Champions League. But for us, this international competition is very much focusing on the league results and is inviting clubs to participate based exclusively on their sport results. So you can already see that this year we will have 44 teams that join our competition out of 59 applicants. 32 of them will end up playing the regular season. 34 of them, so the vast majority of them, have been ranked within the top 5 places of their domestic league. So again, we are talking about the best teams or some of the very best teams in Europe, including 14 national champions that will all compete over 9 months of competition. So again, for us, these are important principles. And as I said before, and I return to this principle, when we launched the competition, we needed to demonstrate to the greater public what it is that we are trying to achieve and what are our values. Because in order to create value, you need to have certain values of your own. So for us to be inclusive, meaning to invite all clubs that have achieved results on the court across Europe, becomes very essential. But at the end of the day, creating value is very much linked to what a club wants. And I think it was very well mentioned by Oytun before, that at the end of the day, participating in a European competition and growing a club is part of a strategic ambition of a club to try to grow its own commercial value. So our first objective here is try to identify the needs of the participating clubs. What do these clubs that play in a European competition actually want from the European competition? Because we are here to service the clubs. We are organizing a competition for the clubs, and therefore providing a sound business model for all the stakeholders becomes quite relevant. Emir mentioned the fact that in my previous professional career, I was involved in the world of football. And then the first point that was very noticeable, of course, when I moved over to the world of club basketball is that the vast majority of clubs were competing at a very top level, but always losing money, which from a business point of view makes no sense. You cannot be a top club and continuously lose money. We always say that, if you have an average season, you should break even. If you have a good season, you should make money. And of course, you have to anticipate the possibility of losing money in the case that you have a poor season. But to have the best season possible and to still lose considerable money, this is not a proper business model. So we wanted to identify this from the outset and create a business model that services the needs of the clubs. What does that mean in practice? Clear planning and financial sustainability. So I was very happy to listen to what Oytun was saying before, that now they are acknowledging that they have entered into a competition where already now in July, they know what it is required in order to reach the very top of the Basketball Champions League. So that allows them to plan and to make the necessary investment, because at the end of the day, planning and being financially solid is very important to the clubs. And this is what we try to do. And we try to do this by providing a very clear competition schedule. Actually today, as we actually speak, the competition schedule has been released and all the clubs should have received it. I was actually looking as we were speaking. Galatasaray will be traveling to the south of Spain, to one of the best teams in the ACB, to Tenerife, recent winners of the Intercontinental Cup. So again, one of those games that I am sure the fans both in Spain and in Turkey will be looking forward to. So we have developed a competition schedule that we have not changed over our 5 seasons so far. We believe that this is equally important for the clubs to have a very good understanding of what it takes to participate in the Basketball Champions League, the number of games that they have guaranteed into the regular season. So when they go out, they sell, for instance, season tickets. They know that they have 7 games at home guaranteed for their fans, and that allows a certain level of planning and certain level of certainty offered to them. They know what it takes to reach all the way to the playoffs and to reach the finals. And again, here you can see the clear link, the correlation, to use Oytun's word, between the sporting success and the results. So all the clubs that will enter the Basketball Champions League and start the season on October 13th, they know that the winner will collect 1 million euros. And that is part of the overall planning. But again, the aim here is not just to cater to the one team, but it is to cater to the 32. So all of them will receive a financial compensation. And we are actually now following what is happening on the European marketplace. And it is very interesting to see how teams that are going to participate in the qualification round on the Basketball Champions League are actually signing some very good players, even for 2 months, with the aim to be able to win that important prize, which is participating in the regular season, because it is not just the 50,000 of the minimum guarantee. It is the 7 games that are played at home. It is the promotion that is offered to their sponsors and to their partners. So the collective benefit that a club gains from playing in the Basketball Champions League is significant. And we are very happy that more and more clubs want to attain this objective. From our point, it is the business model, it is the sustainable approach, but it is also offering development, growth, and promotion to our clubs. We want them to participate in an environment where they can generate value, where they can go to their sponsors and say, look, we play in the Basketball Champions League, so we deserve more of a licensing fee because we are offering you as our sponsor significant promotion. This is how we generate value for ourselves and for our members. So we have a number of partnerships, strategic partnerships, all of them aimed at creating this sort of additional exposure and additional value for our clubs. And these are partnerships that we established from the outset of our competition because we believe to have a good brand, to have good visibility, to have a good media partner, to have a good commercial partner, to do the proper research in order to assess the valuation of all the sponsorship agreements. These are all essential tools, again, going back to creating value and going back to what Ms. Mumcu was said at the beginning. It's all about data collection and how this is used for our clubs. We want to provide them with the TV, the media, the sponsorship, but also a very detailed digital strategy because we live in the digital world today. And we are very happy to acknowledge that the Basketball Champions League is the #1 club competition for basketball on social media in Europe with almost 2.5 million followers. This is, to put it in context, 3 times as much as the #1 club competition, the EuroLeague, but we are very strong and very solid on social media. And we realized this when very early on, when Galatasaray joined our competition, which is one of the clubs that has the highest social media penetration with more than 10 million followers on social media, became very active and got us even more on our toes in trying to react to their needs. And this is our job, trying to grow the competition and to offer to our clubs and to their fans the best possible environment for them to engage and to get promoted at the end of the day, to generate more value. Of course, at the end, we have long-term objectives which relate to the reshaping of the landscape of European club competition. And this is more of a strategic value creation approach. We believe that at the end of the day, we need to collectively, all of us involved in the game of club basketball, increase the pie. What is mind-blowing for someone like myself that has previously worked in the world of football is that the collective revenue from TV and from sponsorship that UEFA generates from its 2 competitions is around 4 billion euros. The collective revenue that all the international club competitions generate in basketball is around 60 million. So that is highly disproportionate for the clear #2 sport in terms of interest. And to link it to what Stefan Holz was saying before, even this 25% interest in Germany, which might be 1/3 from what football generates, certainly the revenue that basketball generates in revenue is not 1/3 from what football generates. So this is where we need to make the link between the actual interest that exists for basketball and the value that we generate. How do we collectively increase the market share for basketball? And as you might have heard, we have recently made a partnership with American investors who also see this opportunity. They see the interest of the game up here and the market share far, far below. So it is clear that there is an opportunity, and this is what we are trying to tap here between ourselves, our investors, and of course, the leagues that remain the fundamental pillar in our competition, because again, we do not have specific clubs that have long-term agreements in our competition. We always try to invite the best teams of the specific league because we do place value in the league results. So at the end of the day, we do try to grow value and to protect the domestic leagues. For us, this is equally important because if we do not have strong domestic leagues, we will never have strong international competition. If the leagues are not providing a competitive environment, if the teams that participate in them week in, week out are not competing at the highest level, they're not competitive on and off the commercial floor, they will never be able to bring in a European context the most competitive approach. And we have put in place a very unique system whereby we put a lot of value on the results on the court in order to then translate this into the participation into the Basketball Champions League. Without going into enormous detail on this, what we actually do is we give points for every victory that a team achieves at the court of the Basketball Champions League. And then those points translate into points for the country, which then determines the number of teams that each country can register in our competition. So you see, for instance, that countries like Spain, France, or Turkey, they can register the maximum number of teams in our competition because over the years, they have become consistent participants and successful teams in our competition. So this is the way that we reward results on the court. This is the way that we give worthiness and value to the leagues because now finishing fifth in Turkey is more important than finishing seventh. So suddenly every victory and every position in the Turkish league has additional value. And this is our, let's say, inclusive approach on how to create, again, value in this pyramid of sport that comes from the local to the regional, to the domestic, to the international competition. So from our side, we are a very young competition. We are one that is making its first baby steps into the market, but we are supporting all of our decisions on very clear principles, very clear values that at the end of the day, we believe are relevant in developing a competition that caters to the needs of all the stakeholders and creates value for all parties involved. That's it from my side, trying to give you a summary on what is a very, not necessarily complicated, but multi-layered approach that we take here at the Basketball Champions League, always putting the clubs in the league and the leagues in the foreground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for that great summary. And also for underlining your main goal, because it's very valuable that you put the clubs, your participating clubs, in the forefront of your operation. And like you said, you are trying to create value for them, because in that way, you can grow your own league. That's a very important point. And secondly, the way you put value on the outcomes of national leagues. I think that's also a very important asset, because indirectly, as you also mentioned at the end there, you are transferring value to national leagues from countries. I think that's a great model. Now, we are running a little bit over time, but we still have time for a short, quick second round, because for a few reasons. One of them, I would like to run around the table one more time to give everybody the opportunity to relate to anything that was said in the first round or to add anything. And secondly, maybe to bring up a few more points. Now, going back to Dr. Mumcu, going back to academics, I want to, among that, I want to ask her, how about the players? Because we're talking about the business of clubs, the business of leagues, and then international leagues, all these businesses. But the way we are developing in modern times, there's also a business of players. They are employers. They have different assistants or employees in different platforms, and they are also concentrating and creating value. What about the players?
Sure. I will try to approach this from the perspective of brands of athletes. I mean, if you think about all of the speakers and the content that they provide, we can't have it without having the players, and actually the brand of the players are impactful in escalator or enhancing the brand of whether the domestic leagues or a club or an international competition, right? So with that said, I brought some information. I will try to make it as brief as possible considering the timeline. In today's context, athletes understand that they have become brands, and they often refer themselves as, I'm not a businessman, I am a business. They do recognize that their personal brand provides business value to them. So just to put that in a clear example, I just brought the follower numbers for LeBron James, Lakers, and NBA. And as you can see, LeBron James have greater follower numbers on Instagram and Twitter. And we can make a general statement and say LeBron James has a larger following than the franchise and the league he plays for. But beyond that, we can look at it and say, if I was able to bring additional social media metrics, we could easily say LeBron James provide better advertising value to the sponsors than the Lakers itself, right? So it has become a big brand. The athletes are brands. There has been a shift from team following to the athlete following, and this came with the popularity of social media. And athletes have become promotional entities attracting media and corporate sponsors. Just a statement at the bottom, LeBron James made over $94 million in 2014, and 55 million of which came from endorsements. So it's very clear that it brings a business value and monetary results to him. But at the same time, I do want to say, LeBron James is not the only star, right? There are many star players in NBA, and yet not everyone makes $55 million from endorsements. So there is a discrepancy, and that actually stems from the strong personal brand. And how strong is yours personally? I just wanted to discuss briefly the dimensions of an athlete's brand. There is a on-court performance related aspect, but there is also an off-court related aspect. And if you look at LeBron James' brand, you can definitely identify the importance of his lifestyle and personality, how he brings social responsibility to the forefront. And looking at the research, it has been identified performance related characteristics of athletes actually impact fans' sponsorship preferences. So they do have lenience towards consuming products from the sponsor of the athlete. But if we look at the research from the perspective of fans' loyalty to the athletes, fans' loyalty and commitment to the team, that is more related to the off-court image. So in other words, it's extremely important for an NBA franchise or for another entity to consider athletes with strong off-court image, because that yields team commitment through the fans. So that is an important finding that came through one of the recent researches. So with that said, it is, I think, obvious that athletes naturally put focus on their athletic performance. It's their job, it's what they know, and they love it, right? They do want to perform well on the court, on the field, on a regular basis, and it's on the forefront for them. But obviously, we do recognize the off-court image and the brand component is extremely important to escalate or build a holistic brand for them. And that's not as natural to many of the athletes. And how do they build an off-court image? And this is done through a team of professionals through agencies. And I'm referring to athlete representation, whether it's Wasserman here or Octagon IMG or Rock Nation, anything else. It is really a group of individuals that come together to help an athlete to build an authentic, cohesive voice across platforms and also in real life events and engagements. So altogether, a holistic strength of the brand is impactful in yielding those monetary outcomes and businesses for the athletes. That's all I have to say about it.
I needed to unmute myself first there. Thank you, Ceyda. That's very interesting because the players are actually the core products of all this business that we are talking about. And the star players are the front products, and everything is built upon them. Now, the next step will be back to Galatasaray and Oytun. Again, please feel free to add anything you want with regard to the first round, Oytun. But further to that, I want to refer to what Ceyda just said with regard to the business of players. How does the business of basketball club management comply with the business of basketball players you employ? And then maybe if there's any time left, real quickly, I know that you are in the process of appointing a new general manager for Galatasaray basketball. This will be a special point of interest for the students of Bilgi Sports Management. What kind of characteristics and capacities do you look for in your GM, and how do you conduct the hiring process?
Thank you again. And first of all, on the social media side, I mean, it has been a challenge for us because we signed Radamel Falcao, and I was one of the members who signed Radamel Falcao last year. So, and why is it a challenge? Because Radamel Falcao is the only person, the only player who has more followers than our club in our roster in football. So just to give you one quick fact, so he has 17.3 million followers on Twitter, whereas we only have 9.3 compared to him. So it's still a big number, but you know, he has double of 4 followers. So we are currently working with a social media agency, which is specifically focused on the American continent to ensure that we can monetize Falcao on that front. So it's like, it's a challenge, but we like the challenges. So, and that's why we signed him. So on the monetization side, I think, which is one of the main reasons why we are talking today, is we are really, it's a privilege to have Mr. Comninos on board. I'm coming also from a football business side, as you know, although my background is in basketball. You know, I have been spending like 2.5 years in Galatasaray, primarily focusing on football business. So I think there are lessons to be learned from football, and that we can easily replicate to basketball, and that's what we are trying to achieve. Just to give you one example, I mean, one of the biggest powerhouses in European basketball is Real Madrid. And I had a very long discussion with Mr. Perez, Mr. Florentino Perez, who is the president. And he was very proud on one hand on the reputation and on the achievements of basketball, whereas it was 30 million euro deficit only in one season, which is not sustainable. It's very clear that it's not sustainable. So in our program, what we are looking for is we are looking for hungry players who will contribute to our family culture. I mean, we are trying to maintain the family culture. And we are also currently exploring opportunities to involve our players more in our commercial activities. And some of our former players who now joined some of the other teams in basketball are also our brand ambassadors or club ambassadors, like Nigel, who is now playing for Zalgiris, and Aaron, who will play for Olympiacos, Zach, Panathinaikos, Alex for Zenit. And the one thing which is actually, you know, where we see a common ground is all of them come from good American programs. Like Nigel is from Wisconsin, Aaron is from Kentucky, Zach is from Notre Dame, Greg is from Georgetown, and Alex is from Kentucky. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's rather a fact that, you know, it shows us something, which is the, you know, we as I think powerhouse in European basketball, we should be looking to recruit players who also come from a strong program in basketball in States. And this year we have signed 2 players for now, as foreigners, and one of them is Arjantir, who comes from Georgia State, and the other one is Alex Hamilton, who comes from Louisiana Tech. And so this tells us something, and we will listen to that. And on the Galatasaray basketball, you will see more coverage of Galatasaray basketball. I think we have already started it. We are more actively using social media, and we receive lots of positive responses, and which is very important for us. We are launching our application together with a Swedish firm called Forza, and it will launch in the transfer season in summer. and there is a specific basketball section there, which we will benefit from. And we will launch more of these Galatasaray tokens, and we will give a stronger word to our fans, to the coin holders, who will be actually actively involved in the decision making, and we really mean that. I mean, it's, you know, they will really, you know, we will run some surveys, and they will have a stronger say in how we manage our club, how we make some decisions. I think it's very important. And about your question on the general manager, and we have recently decided to promote one of our, I think he was #2 guy in men's basketball before Jem, to the kind of a men's basketball general manager position. Why did we do that? First, as of now, we are giving him all of our support. We are empowering him in all the critical decisions. What we want to achieve is a structure where nothing is dependent on board members. In an association like us, it's all about, like, I am today in, tomorrow there may be Patrick, there may be Stefan, Ceyda. It shouldn't be like that. I think, you know, the corporate structure should be the main pillar who actually keeps the show running. And what are we looking for a general manager? And I think it's 360 degree, really. You know, it should have a good understanding of sportive side. I am not expecting like to be like a coach, but some understanding on the sportive side. A very good level of P&L ownership, a financial understanding of the business. So this is, I think, what we lacked in European basketball so far. So people, the general managers had a very good understanding of the sportive side, but on the financial side, there was limited interest. And, you know, the fact that now, you know, we have Mr. Comninos and Basketball Champions League in is very important. Why? Because we have somebody from my market, a private equity guy from Carlisle guy who is on board. And we have a guy from the entertainment business, a former Warner Bros. CEO who is on board. So this is a very good mix that we need everywhere. So also for a general manager, we definitely need that. And we need the general manager to understand the legal side and the regulatory side. So which is very important for us. And commercial side, without saying, you know, it goes without saying, and a vision of what he wants to achieve with that unit, with the basketball. And most important of everything, which is character. We need somebody who needs to be transparent, who needs to be honest, who needs to really, you know, build a very strong sense of ownership of what he's running for. So these are the characteristics that we are looking for. And before I wrap up my second round, I would like to state that, you know, we have established a partnership with a football business academy in Switzerland. So we are currently admitting interns in for our football side. We are more than happy to do the same for basketball. You know, our doors are fully open for anybody from your program who want to, you know, experience it. I think, you know, this is something that we should give back to our community, and we are more than happy to do that. And secondly, and we will discuss it later on, Emir, with you, I guess, as one of our former players, I think I should say that Emir is one of our former Galatasaray players, so people should know it. So that, you know, I'll be more than happy to host a session specifically for the attendees of the program so that we can discuss in more detail about what we are trying to achieve, what are the challenges, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that they may have in that separate session. So thank you again for all of you. And, you know, I hope that we get together next time as well.
Thank you, Oytun. Now we will go back to the German Basketball League. And I would like to bring the same question to Stefan Holz. How does the business of players combine with the league approach? Because Oytun just mentioned Falcao having almost double the number of followers on Twitter in comparison to the club. That's one reality direction. But then you are like a second stage where you have players and the followers, and also the clubs and the followers to exist in harmony with. How do you do that? And secondly, if there's any time left, can you tell us a little bit about the very successful tournament in Munich you had, like the closing tournament under strict COVID measures? And I thought that was very successful. When the ball went to the stands, it was quickly disinfected before it was thrown back into the game, etc. If you would care to say a few things about that tournament to close up. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Emir. Yes, coming back to the first point, the players. I think the basketball business is typical for basketball is that they are very short contracts, short-term contracts, and I think that is a thing all over Europe, maybe all over the world, except NBA, maybe. That some rosters change, rosters of 15 players, they change 12 or 13 players year by year, which is, I think, is a problem to, again, to the stickiness, to build up relations to the fan base. I think we need to have players with multi-year contracts, of course, which is for a league like ours, it's a problem because we are, I call it, we're the middle of a food chain. So if a player develops well in the BBL, of course he can make some more money, get a better contract in a EuroLeague club or go to NBA. Now we have former, some 10 years ago we just had Dirk Nowitzki in the NBA. Now we have 7 German players in the NBA and a bunch of players in G League and in the college ecosystem. So it's this kind of problem. Of course, we're losing the best players to other leagues and in the system. So it's at the end of the day, it's a question of money in the system. So we need to be successful to keep players here, not only Germans, but only of course also international players, to convince them that they are playing in a very good league and before great audiences in full gyms. So that's the thing that we have to convince the players, and we are on the same page there. And yes, and to the second point, very briefly, our famous final tournament in Munich, which back in April, it sounded like a crazy idea to restart. And I think we had a very, very strict protocol. All the 10 teams were playing there, and they all stayed in the same hotel, like now the NBA doing in planning in Disney World. So we had one big 5-star hotel in Munich, which was empty, no other guests. We booked completely the whole hotel. All teams in the hotel, we call it then in a bubble, a strict protocol. They were tested, PCR tested 2 times a week. And when we get the results after 24 hours, of course, we cross fingers each time that we have no positive testing. And actually, we had no positive testing over the tournament. We had 2 positive tests in advance, American players coming back. But that was a problem, situation, of course, that we handled. So at the end of the day, it turned out to be very successful. The players were skeptical at the beginning to be 3.5 weeks in this hotel, not able to go out, not able to meet their families. But at the end of the day, they accepted it. And it turns out to be very, very successful. No positive testing, no injuries, because intense games with very short preparation time for the players to come into game shape. So it was another question if we create some injuries there. We had no major injuries. And we have good sports, intense games. The teams took it very, very seriously. And now, just this week, we received our media data, which are enormous. So we have, in pay TV, we have the figures are, let's say, triple or even 4 times higher than usually per game. We have free TV figures which are up, let's say, 70 or 80%. And at the beginning of the tournament, I made a statement to all our partners, stakeholders, and even in the public. I said, in the 3 weeks tournament, we will create as much as media contacts as in a regular season. We would have created in a regular season in, let's say, 3 months. And it turns out to be on the point. So over pay TV, free TV, print and online and social media, we created more or less exactly the same reach like in the last season in 3 weeks of regular season. with just 30 games, and in regular season we would have played 130 games. So 100 games are missing, but we created the same business numbers. So it was a really huge success for us, and I think gives us a push towards our objectives. And so the idea is to restart quite as soon as possible to use this momentum, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan. Now we will be closing with the highest structure, umbrella structure, the International League. We go back to Patrick Comninos. Patrick, I have 3 quick questions for you. One of them is obviously the players, because you already mentioned the situation of the clubs, their goals are important for you. You also explained how the national leagues are important, how you value their rankings. What is the situation with the players? The second question is, in quite early stages of the pandemic, when the question marks were still so big, the Basketball Champions League stepped up and said, hey, we've made our decision. We will close the season all the way in September. This will give us an opportunity, the clubs an opportunity to have their players, even if they are new players for the next season, etc. At that time, it wasn't very clear, but later, as question marks prevailed in many other platforms, the value of your decision became more and more visible, because you did exactly what was needed for business, for drawing investment. You abolished uncertainties. You made a clear path, and you gave a clear message to everybody, players, clubs, investors, sponsors. Hey, this is what we are doing. This is the calendar, and we are waiting for all of you. Please, could you relate to the pandemic a little bit? And real quick, you mentioned of the Champions League being a new organization. And my question in that respect is, how do you envision the Basketball Champions League in 5 years from now? Because we will have a limited time allocated for questions. Maybe we can cover one of the questions, the one from Ege Tütüncü in that aspect. He was asking about your competitors and the situation with the Turkish Airlines EuroLeague.
Okay, thanks, Emir. I will try to be short in my answers. I think on the players' side, both Oytun and Stefan made very good points from different starting points, but with the same outcome. The short-term contracts that are currently in place in European club basketball do not allow, first of all, for the fan base that Stefan mentioned to be created, for the engagement between fan and players, and the second, link to the financials, to a transfer market. Oytun mentioned the fact that 3 top players from Galatasaray are now going to play for EuroLeague teams. I don't know the financials of the club, but my guess is that the returns or the fees received by Galata for promoting these clubs are negligible compared to the opportunity that exists out there. And that's a fundamental problem when we try to create value. Because now Galatasaray is bringing in some new players, they're investing in their promotion, they have 10 million followers, they will play in a top competition, they will get exposure, but then how does the club capitalize on this investment? And this is part of a general discussion that needs to be done in European basketball. There are many reasons behind this, not to be explored now, but the outcome is one where there is no close association and there is no revenue from what should be an important revenue stream, which is the transfer market. So from our side, we do the utmost to promote the players through our social media to give them additional value. We are actually very happy when we see players that have played in the BCL make the next step, whether this is the EuroLeague or the NBA. What saddens us is the fact that the clubs that have invested in their development and promotion do not necessarily benefit from that. So that's an important issue to be addressed. The second point, very quickly on our decision on COVID-19, it is true that back in March 30th, the BCL board took the decision to postpone the conclusion of the season until September. We will actually have our final eight, September 30th to October 4th. The reasons behind that was not that we necessarily had a crystal ball and saw the fact that it would be impossible, as it was proven, that international competitions would not be able to be held in June or July, but it was more out of respect for our stakeholders. There was no reason to keep the clubs that participated in leagues that were already stopping stay alive and continue paying players and keeping them active for the mere sake of being in anticipation of a European competition. So we tried to postpone our decision, and we are hopeful that we can deliver a final eight that will crown the champion in early October. Again, it's not perhaps the best decision, but it was certainly the best bad decision that we could take, because at the end of the day, it is all about sports. It is all about giving the opportunity to a club to lift that trophy. And then your final point, where we see ourselves in 5 years, I think we want to continue growing. I think we want to offer our clubs the best possible environment, both on the court and on the commercial side. At the end of the day, we want to be able to offer our clubs the opportunity to benefit even more. So creating a market pool from the commercial revenue, creating additional opportunities for the clubs to generate revenue is in our vision. And hopefully in 5 years' time, the European landscape will be structured in a manner that will enable all the stakeholders to really benefit from an environment that is well structured, because the more unstructured basketball remains, the more complicated it is for a fan to follow, the more commercial value we will lose to handball, to rugby, or to ice hockey. You need to unmute, Emir.
Very much so, Patrick. I mean, better structuring is sure to bring better benefits for everybody. Now, Dr. Tunaz is signaling to me that we are running out of time, but I just want to take the liberty to squeeze in 2 quick questions from 2 students, and both of them seem to be targeting Patrick. Yusuf Bekerecioğlu is asking about, do you have any strategy to expand into new markets? Does the Champions League think in developing in that direction? And Büşra Özer brought up an interesting point. She's asking about, of course, obviously the Champions League is a top-level professional organization, but do you have any thoughts towards the grassroots or the future, the children? Do you have any targets or approaches towards them?
Okay, both are very important questions to us. When it comes to new markets, there are 2 dimensions to this. There are the new markets within the European continent, and I think our obligation and our DNA is linked in that direction. I mentioned to you that this year we had 59 registrations from 28 different countries around Europe. We have a team from London back in European competition after many, many years, and that's obviously a market that is of relevance in European sports. But of course, because we do respect the sporting principles, the London Lions, the champions of the UK, they will start the season in the qualification rounds. And if they are good enough, they will make it to the next stages. So from our point of view, we believe very much in the opportunities that exist within the European marketplace. But of course, let's not forget the BCL is part of FIBA, which is the world governing body. And in that sense, we are part of a much greater global strategy. We now have our cousin, the BCL Americas, in Latin America. We have the partnership with the NBA for Africa. We have the partnership with the NBA when it comes to the Intercontinental Cup. So I think one of the unique opportunities afforded to the BCL and to its champion is that they will then go to the global, let's say, approach, the intercontinental one, where they will compete against some of the best teams from the other continents. So for us, the BCL is not just operating within the confines of the European continent, but is doing so within the world. So for us, this is equally important. When it comes now to grassroots, we are putting extreme value on this. From our inception of our competition, we have implemented a rule about homegrown players, which means that every team needs to have a minimum of 5 homegrown players. What we mean by homegrown is players that have learned basketball in that specific country. It is not linked to the passport. It is not linked to the nationality. It is linked to which environment invested in them learning their trade. We don't want to be a competition where a team can participate with 12 Americans. That does not help grow the sport in our continent. We want Turkish players to play for Galatasaray. We want German players to play for all the teams that are represented by the BBL, et cetera, et cetera. And that is for us the direct message sent to the clubs and to the links about the importance we place on the development of players. So it is, again, part of this greater pyramid on how to develop the sport from local to regional and all the way to international competitions. And we take extreme pride on our decision to impose this homegrown player rule.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Now, that's about it. So I want to sincerely thank all of you one more time on behalf of Bilgi University Sports Management Department for responding to our invitation and joining us here for this panel, and for the value you have created for our department, for our university. We're talking about creating value in sports business, but thank you very much for the value you have created for us and for our students in particular. We have done this panel online due to the specific circumstances we are in right now, but we would certainly very much like to repeat it sometime in person in the future, with the opportunity of hosting all of you in Istanbul. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
It was a
too.
pleasure.
Thank you, Emir, for the
Pleasure. Thank you.
coordination. Thank you very much.